I first got into ham radio after meeting my friend, longtime childhood friend in Oklahoma City. Um, he became a ham, and then I wanted to become a ham so that we could talk to each other over the radio. Long distance wasn't available to us at that time. I think I was about 14 years old when Everett got his ham license. And then I was 16 years old when I was finally able to pass my test and become a full-fledged radio amateur. That was in November of 1950. So I began my radio career in 1948, and I discovered that I loved operating with Morse code, and that I would probably be mostly operating with Morse code. When I was in the Army Security Agency as an intercept operator, operating in Germany, monitoring the Russians, I could tell if I monitored the same station 2 days ago and the same operator was on that station, although he had a different call sign, I knew that that was the operator that I heard 2 days ago. It's based on the signature of his fist. And if he used some automatic method, I wouldn't have any idea that was him behind the transmitter. But by using Morse code, it's just like a voice signature. You can tell. At my highest point of transmitting, I could transmit at 40 words a minute without making very many mistakes. I could receive at 60 words a minute. Today I can still receive at a high speed, maybe somewhere between 50 and 60 words a minute, but I can only transmit about 30 to 32 words a minute at the present time. The most comfortable speed for me is 28 words a minute, and that gives me plenty of time to think and to string my thoughts together and to have them roll off of my hand. Once you've mastered Morse code as a language, you automatically know where the letter ends and where the next letter begins. There's a tiny pause in there that maybe your ear wouldn't be able to detect, but for the experienced Morse operator, you can detect the spaces in between letters and the spaces in between words. Morse code is music to a Morse operator, and you want to send nice music to the one you're talking to, and you want to hear that person send good, clear music to you. So we consider our keys and our ability to send and receive Morse code as our musical ability. It's our music. So I sometimes get on and talk with people for well over an hour, having a chat, and I say talk, I use that term loosely, talk with my fingers, for well over an hour, and the time passes so rapidly because we're back and forth like we were jamming at some, in somebody's house. Before I got my radio license in 1950, back in those days there was not a novice class, so a young fellow would have to try to learn to operate on his own without without the privilege of going on the air. So most of the time we would look through the radio amateur call book and find where a call hadn't been issued. A lot of my friends in high school did this, and we would select a call for our own to be used, and it would give us the ability then to go on the air and communicate with each other while we built our speed up to go sit before the FCC examiner. One time, and we would always notify all of our radio friends in school if we saw an FCC truck in the area. It was a little panel truck with a loop antenna on the top, and they would drive around and they would try to locate these bootleg stations. So we would say, hey, stay off the air. Don't operate. The FCC's in town. And we would lay low until there was no trace of the FCC. I was operating in my room one time, in my back bedroom, and I heard the doorbell ring, and I pulled my earphone off, and I listened as I heard my mother walk down the hall to the back bedroom where my father was in bed. He was recovering from an illness. And she walked down the hall there, and she said to this person that was with her, we have his room right back here. I was sure it was the FCC coming to lock me up. I quickly took my homemade transmitter and my homemade receiver, and I hid it in my closet, and my heart was in my throat. I thought surely I was caught by the FCC and that they were going to put me in jail. For sure, I was sure of that. And then come to find out it was a doctor that was walking down the hallway to see my father in his bedroom. I felt like saying, hey doc, come in here. This is the guy you need to check over now. I find that most of your Morse operators are older hams. However, I have a very good friend that's a young fella. He's just turned 18 years of age, and he's an excellent Morse operator. And I befriended him about a year ago, and we try to make contact on a weekly basis, and there is no age barrier when we talk. It's like I don't see him as just a kid, and he doesn't see me as an old man. We just have developed a friendship over the time that we've known each other, and we can talk about anything and everything. Sometimes he says things to me that he wouldn't say to his parents. And I like to kid him, and we go back and forth, just having a ball. It's like I was sitting across the table from him. The majority of the contacts that we make as hams are one-time contacts. Although if you find something in common with the people that you're talking with, you may make a schedule and meet again. And if you continue to have enjoyable conversations, then you go back time after time. I have friends that I've developed in different parts of the world, either just simply by radio contact, or I met them when I was in that part of the world. When I was working in Turkey, I met a young man that lived in the same town that I lived in. And I put the word out as soon as I started working for the company, and they got back to me and told me that this school teacher at the local high school was a ham radio operator, and I made arrangements to meet him. He and I became good friends, and we used to operate together. We'd get up in the middle of the night and try to work into North America or Australia or different parts of the world together. And then also I have two really good radio friends that live in Helsinki, Finland, mainly because my daughter lives in Helsinki, and when I get over there, I just happen to always arrange for a visit with these friends. How did I meet them? The first time when I was visiting my daughter, I walked around her neighborhood looking for radio aerials on rooftops. I spotted one, and I immediately recognized that it was a radio amateur antenna. So I knocked on the door, and I met my good friend Essa that day. we had so much in common. We both loved to operate with low power radios, and we just enjoyed the hobby immensely. Essa and I have spent a lot of time together over the past 15 years. And then Essa took me to a radio club meeting at the Helsinki Radio Club, and I met my good friend Heikki and his son Antti, and we became fast friends. And Heikki and Antti and Essa and I stay in touch with each other to this very day. I email them, they email me. Sometimes the radio conditions are perfect and we can talk back and forth on the radio with each other. I probably spend an average of 1.5 to 2 hours a day, every day. Some days I don't come out here at all, but other times I come out here and I might spend 4 hours. Depends on who I have schedules with. I schedule every Monday. I have a radio schedule that lasts an hour with a man up in Cape May Courthouse, New Jersey. And then shortly after he goes on his way, I hook up with another fellow who's traveling in his car around Dallas, Texas. He goes every Monday to meet a friend of his, to have lunch with a friend of his, and so I jump in his car when he leaves his driveway. My radio signal is in his car and his radio signal is here in my shack, and we communicate the whole trip as he makes the trip along the highway. Ham radio is my window to the world. I have many friends that I contact on ham radio, and I love making new friends and establishing Morse code contacts, no matter where I am. I always carry a little radio station with me. When I'm going to visit somebody, I find a convenient spot in their home or in their backyard, and I throw an antenna up in the air over a tree branch, and I start to make contacts, either with my friends or I find new friends. If you knock on the door of a fellow ham, or if a fellow ham knocks on your door, you immediately have something in common and you can develop a friendship from that point. Ham radio is really a fraternity, and it's a lifelong experience. You never reach the end of learning in ham radio. There are so many different aspects of the hobby, so many different modes that you can operate on, and so many different things that you can do in ham radio. You can talk to other countries using satellites that are specially designed for ham radio. You can talk to people directly using FM or single sideband or AM. You can talk to them with your fingers by using CW, Morse code. And you can talk to them via a keyboard and a computer, or just a plain old keyboard that's tied into a transmitter. So ham radio is a continual learning experience. You never stop learning.